can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? For purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks, Lori LeBay. In addition, I was a daughter who helped care for my mom who had dementia for 30 years, and that's really why I started Alzheimer's Speaks. You see, we're an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world to help people live better with this disease. We believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having these everyday conversations about life with dementia, that we're going to be able to remove some of the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those living with the disease continue to live with purpose, as well as those that are caring for them. It's so critical for us to get out the true needs of this disease and remove the isolation that it's causing, both friends, family, and community, as well as those diagnosed. At our core, Alzheimer's Speaks believes that collaboratively is really the only way we're going to win this battle. You know, we need to work together. And so I want to thank you all for your clicks and shares and likes of all of our resources, not just the radio show, but Dementia Chats, our blog, our resource directory, and so many other facets that we have. You see, by you sharing with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn colleagues, your Twitter tribes, and so much more, you have allowed us to become the number one influencer online regarding Alzheimer's disease, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And so that is an honor. Not only did we accept, but we want all of you to be part of as well, because it takes all of us to raise awareness and education and, really making a difference in terms of people getting to understand this disease. So again, I want to thank you so much. If you're listening today and you're thinking, gosh, maybe I have a story to tell, and maybe I should talk to Lori and see what she thinks. Don't hold back. Go to alzheimersspeaks.com, click on the big contact button, and you can shoot me an email or call me, whichever you prefer. And let's have a conversation, because we interview everybody on this show, from people who are actually diagnosed with dementia to family and friends caring for them, to business professionals, authors, singers, film directors, actors, researchers, you name it. Everybody has a place, and we would love to hear your voice in that place as well on Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. Before I introduce our first guest today, I do want to just give a shout out to the Dementia Action Alliance, known as DAA. And you can find them at www.daanow.org. And they're a newer organization, just been around about a year. But they're really trying to pull us together as a nation to make a difference for dementia. So go check out Dementia Action Alliance. I also want to give a shout out to my friends at the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. They do a lot with more holistic type methods. So there you'd learn about food and nutrition, meditation, exercise, and they're doing some great research as well on that. So anyways, let's get started with today's show. I'm excited to have Joni Aldrich with us today, and she is a caregiver advocate, and she was a Pulitzer Prize nominated author, speaker, and radio host. Joni was actually a caregiver for her husband, Gordon, and her mother, Martha, through their terminal cancer battles, and both had late-stage cancers that spread to the brain. In fact, that was what actually ended up killing her husband, Gordon. And through those journeys, Joni found out really how difficult and emotional caregiving for a brain illness patient can be. So I'm so excited to have her with us today. She's just a wonderful gal doing tremendous work. So welcome, Joni.
Thanks for having me, Lori. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, good. We are always excited to hear from you. I wanted to talk to you because you had reached out to me about discussing the issue of care receivers say the darndest things and why that's important for caregivers to know. So why don't you explain kind of that saying? Care receivers say the darndest things, and we'll just kind of flow from there.
Well, Lori, thank you for bringing up this important topic. I actually did reach out to you because I began to see, I've recently been introduced to two different situations where not only did care receivers say the darndest things, it had very, very serious, in one case it had very serious consequences, and the other, it could have had very serious consequences. So, I know a little bit about it through my two books. One is Connecting Through Compassion, that's for brain cancer, caregivers of brain cancer patients, and one is Understanding with Compassion, which is for caregivers of a brain illness patient, and I actually wrote those with an MS in counseling, a dear friend of mine whose husband was home with severe dementia for 8 years with her, Nasa Peterson. But, until I heard these two stories, I thought, this is something that's very serious that needs to be discussed. And if it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and share those two stories.
That would be great.
Right?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. In the first case, and these were both true stories. Now, the names are being protected, because obviously these are very difficult topics. But in the first case, a son was accused by his 74-year-old father of, quote unquote, trying to kill him out of the blue after they got into an argument on the way to a medical facility. In a bizarre case of nonfiction is often stranger than fiction, the son was put on a 72-hour psych hold against his will. When he strongly objected, they injected him with an antipsychotic drug that clashed with a drug he was already using for depression, and it caused what is called a chemical lobotomy. And that is a true story, and his father still has not been given the potentially critical attention that he needs, because potentially this could have been caused by dementia. So he's not diagnosed, but his son had been caregiving for him for about 6 months. As a matter of fact, what was interesting about this case, Lori, was his son had been giving him daily IVs for an infection he got for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then on the way to the hospital, it was just things got out of control, and they took his statement very seriously when he went to the hospital without any proof, no bruises, no, and just took a terrible turn. But obviously, if he'd been giving him IVs for 6 months, that would have been more than enough time to do something terrible to him if he wanted to. But that was the level of care that the son was giving. So unfortunately, the father and son now do not have any conversation at all. They're estranged.
Oh, that's so sad. But, you do hear of these things happening. What do you have any recommendations when something like this happens for, what people can do?
Well, I think what really accelerated the subject was the fact that the son really lost his temper too. And I think this is an important point for caregivers, that what you need to do in these situations is you need to kind of step back and just take a couple of 20 deep breaths, maybe 25, and try to calm yourself. And really, obviously, if it is a case of dementia, reasoning won't help. So, just talk to the powers that be and just say, hey, look, I don't know what this situation is, but, try to calm the care receiver and just remain calm at all times. What threw fuel on the fire was, because of the extreme way that the son was being treated, he acted out, and that just made the situation even worse. So anger meets anger, and bitterness meets bitterness. And, so you've got to remain calm. That is the key, I think.
Yep. And that's really difficult to do because you're pushing every emotional button you got in the world. And it's not done intently, but it does happen. And I know even just small things like when somebody doesn't remember somebody's name, that the button that pushes, how could they, why are they doing that to me? And it gets all turned around. Sometimes, and it really, we have to stay grounded that this isn't intentional. This is really what they're thinking at that point in time, and it seems rational to them, and that's hard to do. And I think sometimes we get in our own way. What about, calling for help in a situation like this? Do you have any recommendations for who to call if it escalates, or should people just walk away, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that, obviously everything is centered around the care receiver. So they were at the medical facility where the doctor was. But, it's hard because even, when it's not diagnosed, it really, really makes it difficult. I know that my friend Natha Peterson used to say that if you were in a situation where, say, for example, a care receiver said something like that, but it was diagnosed already, what she recommended, which I thought was very creative, was to have a little business card made up that said, "Hello, my name is such and such. I'm caregiving for this person who has been diagnosed with dementia." Okay. So then you can hand them the card, whatever the situation was, and diffuse some things along the way. But, perhaps call another family member in to say, okay, that's not the way things are going at home. I've seen no evidence of that. Or friends that have been visiting the house. But certainly some other I hate to say it, but some other witness in that particular case would have helped a lot. But again, I think the big key is to keep your cool, keep your calm, do the best you can to let others know that maybe there's something else going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary for family and friends, and it's got to be scary for the person with dementia who, really believes something like this is happening, or, someone who is having dementia symptoms due to another disease as well. Now, I know that you have a couple of other examples that maybe we can talk about as well. If you wouldn't mind sharing those, that'd be great too.
Well, and you mentioned having another disease, and that's the second case. A mother who is on strong antidepressants because she has been diagnosed with a difficult late-stage cancer diagnosis. She repeatedly accused her middle-aged son of being a drug dealer to strangers and distant family members. While he made some mistakes in his 20s, the accusation is totally false and probably facilitated by the time that she'd been spending in psychiatric groups full of drug addicts, unfortunately. But what if someone took that seriously? And actually, Lori, I have an update on this situation from just yesterday. And she just did have a psych evaluation. Went to a neurologist yesterday to start having cognitive testing. And even the whole time she was there, she was saying that people were watching her son whenever he left to go out to the car or something. They're watching you. They're watching you. So I'm feeling fairly certain that hopefully this is going to be the end of this. They weren't sure for a while if part of her problem was the antidepressants were making her act differently. But in this particular case, what I really believe has happened, and I've done some research on this as recently as today, a critical diagnosis, if the patient has dementia or may have the early stages of dementia and may not have been diagnosed, like in this case, can really push them over the edge. And I think that may have been was happening, because she definitely has short-term memory problems. She was not able to remember any of the 3 words in the cognitive, assessment. So, there's a lot going on there. But again, with the son being her primary caregiver and being in the home she was taking strong antidepressants and different drugs and stuff, and particularly a cancer patient with Oxycontin, oxycodone, and many different pain relievers. If someone in law enforcement had heard that, they could have said, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I even know of a story. I'll tell you one more quick one. One of my friend's parents, her mother was under hospice care for late-stage cancer in West Virginia, and they had drug dealers break into their house and kill both of them. Okay. So again, you don't want to, you definitely don't want to be talking about drugs being in the household to begin with. And in this particular situation, well, it could be very bad.
Yeah. It's spooky stuff. I know I had a girlfriend whose mom had gotten really paranoid, and she was thinking that there were bugs and various things. And one time her and her sister were over at her house, and they were in the process of trying to get her downsized and moved because she needed more care. And she had been to the doctor, on several occasions. And then the mom called the police, and the police came out. And she actually sent me a whole recording of the whole conversation. And she said the police were just brilliant with it. And then the daughters ended up leaving because it was the mom's home and stuff. And but it was so sad for them because they were trying. They just loved their mom to death, and yet she needed some help and wasn't getting it because they just kept saying, "Oh my God, how awful for her to be so fearful." Because she was
the
really
paranoia.
Yeah, really living in all of that, and they finally got things squared away, and it ended up being more of a medication thing than anything, because at first they thought, was it a UTI? Because, that urinary tract infection can cause all kinds of strange side effects and stuff. And it wasn't that and stuff. But you just, you could, when I listened to the recording, I could just hear it in all of their voices, just the strain and the sadness and the hurt and the fear and just all of it. And yet everyone was, the daughters were really quite calm, with all of it, but you could just almost feel the anxiety that was in that room, even though I wasn't there. And, I was lucky. I never had that with my mom for the most part. Every once in a while she would get a little paranoid, but never anything to a major extent. Her big thing was she didn't want anyone in her kitchen but me, and I wouldn't let my sister-in-laws in there, but we could deal with that one. That wasn't bad.
Wow.
Now for you, with your husband, Gordon, he was sick and he had brain cancer. Were there some things that he said that just kind of threw you for a loop? And
absolutely. As a matter of fact, Lori, it's very painful, really, to talk about, because it was the last 5 weeks of his life, and he just totally changed. He became a totally different person. And it was difficult for me to mourn him because I couldn't understand it. I kept begging everybody, please give me some information. That's the reason I wrote these 2 books, is because I still, even years afterwards, yes, I understood that it was a brain cancer. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I knew that. But I didn't understand why this wonderful, gentle man that I had loved for my whole life, for 25 years of it, was acting out to me. And when I found Nasa Peterson, the MS in counseling, she explained to me. And so I began to understand 2 years after he had died, why he had reacted that way, and that people with brain illnesses, brain cancer, tumors, anything affecting the brain can have a loss of social inhibition. And it was just that one simple thing that clarified all of that for me. But yeah, we were I was sitting by his bedside one night. And again, it makes it really tough because this was the last 5 weeks of his life. And I knew I was going to lose him soon. And so having him be ugly to me or be mean to me was very, very hard. And we were sitting there one night, and he looked at me out of the blue, and he said, well, what are you going to do the rest of your life? Like that, you know. And here I'm losing my husband. I'm tired, you know, because silly me, I thought I could stay and take care of them all the time, you know, and stay up all night and still be okay. And I looked at him, I started crying, as any wife probably would. And he looked at me and he said, oh, why don't you just grow up? Like that. And Lori, I'm going to tell you, you might as well have just taken and stabbed me right in the heart. I finally got him to sleep, which, of course, patients with brain illnesses have trouble sleeping. I finally got him to sleep, and I went and I laid down on the couch. I was staying in the room with him, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And that had the biggest impact on me, and nobody could explain to me, which is why Connecting Through Compassion, my book is at Duke Cancer Institute, and they use it. They have more brain cancer patients than anywhere else in the country. I'm very proud of that because other people need that book in their hand. So, yeah, and then my mother actually had metastatic brain cancer. And I kind of knew that something was going on, so I got her to the neurologist, and believe it or not, he misdiagnosed her.
Oh, jeez.
So she went another 6 months with a terminal lung cancer with brain mets. And again, that's why I do what I do, is to try to make people aware of the critical nature of this.
Yeah, it's so very important, and to be able to get that emotional support, because, you know, you turn to your friends and your family, and if they're not in the thick of it, or if they don't witness it, they don't get it. And
Right.
and it's hard to have that conversation when you so need somebody to get it, because you're not even getting it. You know, you're struggling to work your way through it, and yeah, really, really important. What would you suggest for people in terms of, you know, for them to find ways to connect with others who are going through, you know, similar experiences?
Well, actually, if you don't mind, Lori, I'd like to read a poem. That's one of the things I pulled up while we were getting ready. It's called Bridges by E. Radomski. Have you ever heard it before?
No, I haven't. I don't think I have.
Okay, let me share it with you. It's in both of my brain illness books. If I could build a bridge to you, I'd make it straight, I'd make it true, with lighted lanes and broad expanse, without a curve to stumble through. And when I'm done, across I'd chance, like winged dove in spring's romance. I'd fly like wind and comets bright, to reach your shores and dance the dance. I'd never stop, though day or night, till I was home, 'neath starburst bright. And once alit upon your shore, I'd burn the bridge and ne'er take flight. And when I found that poem, you know, because again, I didn't understand it, but what NASA would always talk to me about was building a bridge. And you can't expect your loved one to come to your side of the bridge. You have to go to their world and their side of the bridge. And you have to burn that bridge and live with them every day in that moment, whatever moment they are in. But NASA taught me reasoning doesn't work, and that all Alzheimer's dementia patients and brain illness patients, for that matter, there is, for everything, there is an underlying need that you need to get to that need. And if you can find it, then you can help them to get past that. and also, the art of distraction as well. And it's possible that in the two examples that we had today, if these older adults could have been distracted, then perhaps they would that would be enough to get them to move on to another topic. But it isn't easy, and I admire dementia and Alzheimer's caregivers a tremendous amount. I only had to go through it, and I say that, obviously I would have gone through it longer if I could have kept Gordon here, but 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. So, it's just extreme, and it's a lot of pressure, and find people that can help you.
Yeah, it really is. There's so much great connection now on the internet, for people to be able to talk via Facebook groups or video conferencing, if it's Skype or Google Hangouts or Zoom or webinars. I mean, there's just so much technology to connect us that it saddens me when people aren't connected. And some of that can be a lack of technology. Some of it can just be a fear of the unknown. But the power of those connections, I've just seen the beauty in that, and the powerfulness of those connections, because they're true, authentic connections. They're not people just chit-chatting about stuff that's not important, how the traffic's doing or right. A sports game. They're talking about real, everyday life, gut-wrenching and joyful moments that you just don't share with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And so there's this vulnerability, there's this safety that kind of makes you melt and goes, it's okay. They get it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to explain it. And we can be such great resources for one another as well through that process. I think that's just absolutely amazing as well, is how we can really lift one another up by just listening sometimes. That's as simple as it gets. I don't think with those connections, and you may differ with me on this, but I think a lot of times we just want to be heard. We're not looking for someone to solve our problems, so we know that would be nice, but we just want to be heard.
Well, and I think a lot of times, though, when you are in blog groups or support groups, as you give your story, then somebody else in there has had that same situation, and they can help share with you what worked for them. This is a problem, that we see in the world of cancer, which, of course, as you know, I spend a lot of my time in, is, you've got to realize that this is a situation that you're in, just like with a cancer diagnosis or dealing with someone with dementia and Alzheimer's. Unless you've been specifically trained to deal with that situation, experience matters. Mm-hmm. Just like with you, Lori. I mean, obviously, you're a wealth of information. And so the important thing I think that we're both saying here is to leave yourself open to learn, because just like with the gentleman with the mother mm-hmm. that has cancer, I just spoke with him last night, and I recommended my book. I've given him a copy. I said, you go straight to that, because there are probably, even though she's not even diagnosed yet, she's had the test, but they haven't gotten the final diagnosis. There are tools in there that you can use mm-hmm. that you may not even know you need.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Very much so.
You have to adapt, whether you're in cancer world or whether you're in dementia, Alzheimer's caregiving world. You really need to let other people in and let them help you until you can really get your feet solidly on the ground.
No, and that's such good advice. And I think with any of that, one of the things we talk about is being able to help others. But when we help others, we help ourselves. And it's probably, I think, one of the most healing things we can do when we reach out, when we show our vulnerability. That's healing for us, too. And so there really is this give and take. And sometimes people forget that these relationships are two-sided. But there's knowledge to be learned on both sides. and it's quite beautiful. Now, I know that you've written a couple of books. If you want to go ahead and give them a plug and how they might be able to help some of our listeners, that would be wonderful too.
Well, obviously, the one that best relates for here is Understanding with Compassion, Help for Loved Ones and Caregivers of a Brain Illness Patient. My most recent book is called Advocacy Heals U, 15 Keys to Fast Track Results and Emotional Fulfillment. And it does relate to your audience as well, Lori, because, in fact, what we talk about in it, this is the first book that has ever been written on personal advocacy from this viewpoint. All of the other books on advocacy out there are legal advocacy. But in the book, my partner, Chris Sherry, and I talk about the event that happens. There's an event that happens in your life. It may be your mother or your father is diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. And you see from that journey, you see a need that really needs to be addressed. And from that, you get an internal call to do something about it, to help other people. And through the helping of other people, what you find is the most amazing thing happens because you yourself are healed. And so Advocacy Heals U is up for a Pulitzer Prize, and we're very, very proud of it. We feature not only my partner and mine and Chris's story in there, but we also have 95 other advocates in there that give their story. It's based on our radio program, Advocacy Heals U, the radio program.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
It's just a great feel-good book. As a matter of fact, we have 7 pages of endorsements in the book because what we found was that every person we sent it to review took something else out of it, something different out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were all different. There were no overlapping. There was a caregiving one in there. There was a cancer one in there, but many, 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 many other examples. A lot of people just don't know that they're a caregiver. Caregivers themselves are the best advocates.
Mm-hmm.
They're an advocate for their patient. And we talk about patient advocacy and personal advocacy in the book because both my story and Chris's story was directly linked to patient safety. So he lost his little girl tragically to a preventable medical error. So it's just a tremendous book. Everybody should read it.
Oh, wow.
It's just...
It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. There's so many people dealing with so many things in life, and we need to stay connected and be empowered and not get too beat up through what we're going through, because there are others who are going through the same thing, and if we reach out, we'll find them. Or if we're just able to talk about it. It's amazing how many times I see people who haven't spoken about certain topics, and then they're just shocked at all the people who are thinking the same thing or doing the same thing, and they had no idea that there's a group out there of people who really was living and feeling the same way they were. And it does. We all have to get strong enough to speak up and not be embarrassed or ashamed, which sometimes I think we fall into that cloud of, well, we're not supposed to act like this. We're not supposed to feel like this. And so I don't want anyone to know about that. Or I'm supposed to handle this and I'm not handling this as well as I think I should be handling it, or as, what I think other people think I should be doing and stuff. And so we kind of live in the closet or live in this veil of shame. And that needs to change. That really needs to change. And I think it is changing out there. And with people like you and other voices out there kind of, saying it's okay. It's okay to have these conversations, and we can do better together than we can apart. Is a huge thing. I wanted to talk a little bit with you too about when a care receiver says something that could be misconstrued by their care circle. and what caregivers can kind of do, or care partners can do, to kind of diffuse that situation before it gets critical. We kind of touched on that a little bit before, but I'm wondering if we should dive into that a little bit more.
Well, are you talking about in a situation where there are more than one caregivers that may be experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, or sometimes in families they're experiencing different things, and that can complicate things too. Where one is seeing this and they're talking about it, and the other ones are telling them they're crazy. I think that comes into play sometimes too. So I'm kind of open, for whichever way you want to take the conversation.
Well, and I think, again, and I keep going back to these individual stories, I think the most important thing in any illness, including cancer, including Alzheimer's, is to learn as much as you can about what to expect. And of course, I explain it in Understanding with Compassion. It depends on what part of the brain is being affected. And in dementia, it depends on. I was interested this morning. I was reading about all the different kinds of dementia, that can be affected. So, I think you need to learn as much as you can about what the patient is going through or might potentially do, and then keep a log. I think a journal is absolutely critical. And if you keep a journal, then if another caregiver is coming in, then they can go directly to that journal and they can see, oh, they did this today, or they didn't eat today, or they wanted to, I had trouble getting them to take their bath today, and this is what I did, and it seemed to work. So I think you have to put the successes and the problems in there. And if you don't have any successes, maybe those other caregivers can help you get to that point. But I think it's very, very, very important to keep a log, to keep a journal.
Mm-hmm. And that helps so much when you go in for your medical appointments and for your family conversations, to really be able to track how often and how things are happening. Because sometimes we don't remember as clearly as we think we do.
And it may be a change of medication is needed.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that thing that you're seeing is not related to the disease at all. Maybe the patient's just having a bad day, and what have you. But I think communication is critical in everything, and kind of keeping your cool and keeping your calm.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back to that, because without that you can get into some really dire situations.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, this has been a really enlightening conversation. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know?
Well, they can certainly know that my books are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and I have radio interviews on iHeart as well. I do Caregiving SOS, Cancer SOS, Treatment SOS, have some amazing shows coming up. Matter of fact, I just did one, Lori, on spinal cord regeneration. It might be actually in our future, and what a wonderful thing that would be. And if that works, there is potential that can also be used to hopefully regenerate brain cells. And wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
So you can find my interviews on iHeart under Supporter of Survival, Joni Aldrich, Supporter of Survival, and just some wonderful topics coming up in there. And all of these are for the listeners, just like in your situation, Lori. These are all for the listeners, and to help them get through really tough situations.
Wonderful. And so they can just go to your main website, jonialdrich.com, www.jonialdrich.com, or you're on Facebook, and you're also on Twitter as Cancer Radio. And again, you can look for the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Advocacy Heals U, and U is not spelled out, it's with a U. And it's it's just been a pleasure. It always is to have you on the show, Joni. So I very much appreciate the conversation today, and I think it'll help a lot of our listeners. What was your saying again? From calm to you. What did you use? It was a great saying. Something about calm to keep the peace.
Anger greets anger.
Nope.
I don't know if that's the one you're talking about,
Nope.
because I can tell you that's extreme right there.
Yep, it wasn't that one. It was something about calm.
Uh-oh.
And creating the calm, and I can't remember it. I was going to write it down, and then it went too fast, and I had something else pop up in my head, and I'll have to listen to the show and find out what it was. But it was
on your next show.
But it was a great tagline, and I thought, oh, that's a good one.
Well, let me know.
That's a good one. Yeah. So at the end of the show here, just wind her back about 5 minutes, and it'll be there. So, well, thank you so much for your time today, Joni. I really appreciate it very much, and wish you, added success in the future here. You've just done such a great job with your work and your advocacy and helping others. So again, thank you for being with us today.
Well, you're very welcome, Lori. Anytime. I enjoyed it.
Okay, great. For those of you who are new to Alive and Social, feel free to check out Apples to Apples on Monday at 2:30. Central Time, and you'll listen to Scott and Drew Applebaum, who are a father and son team, discuss sports, and you'll be able to find out if Father always knows best through those conversations. And then at 4 o'clock on Thursday, you can listen to Tom Smith, who's a local mortgage expert here in Minnesota, and radio personality BT on a show called Mortgages and BS, and they cover everything from owning a home and refinancing to how to maintain it, and updates on entertainment and just kind of what's going on in the world at large. If you didn't have a chance to listen to our last show, we talked about technology, and we had people from all over the world with some different technology. It was a great show. The one prior to that, we talked about Don's Alzheimer's World, which was a new twist on the Dementia Village concept. So remember that all of our shows are archived. We've been doing this for over 4 years now, so there's lots to listen to. And then on March 1st, we are going to be talking about delirium. What exactly is that? And we're going to introduce you to a new product called Calendar Cards. I will also be posting an article and have it on our website for Dementia Chats, because this week we talked about funding for dementia, and we asked our experts living with dementia, how does the funding make them feel? So when cancer beats out dementia again, what kind of impact does that have on their life? How would they like to see that play out differently, etc.? And then I also just want to let you know, if you're in Texas, come and see me. I'm going to be in Texas for a couple of weeks in April doing some screenings of His Neighbor Phil, and I would love to be able to meet you. And also last, I just will do a shout out for the Caregiver Alert Center. This is a new company that is doing some really cool stuff. They've been around a long time, but they can really help find someone who's missing. And I'll be posting an article a little bit later this week regarding this that'll have some discounts in terms of if you want to do it. But there's one specifically for caregivers, there's one for pets, there's one for kids, there's even one for college students, and for corporate business people traveling the world. Pretty innovative, really fast, and I can tell you I had a friend whose sister went missing, and it took over 9 days for it to hit the public. And this is something that can get done in about 7 minutes, go electronic, and I think it's going to change how we help find those that are vulnerable and who have gone missing. So thanks again. Look forward to talking to you next week. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.